It's my great honor to introduce Dr. Chin Cheng Chai. Is it correct pronunciation?
Yes.
I'm surprised his achievement in academic achievement and also activities in current field. He graduated from Columbia University in 1996, okay? And then he is now the chair professor. I think he is very famous scholars among the professors. Chair professor in Columbia University from 2006 until now. He got a lot of editorships among important, also famous academic journals. Among them, let me give two important journals: Computer and Education, editor from 2009, International Journal of Science Education, editor 2006 until now. I'm very happy and it's a great honor to have with him as a premier session. Thank you so much. Okay, here talking about the issue, very fundamental issue of education, conceptual learning. So he's going to talk about conceptual learning in the context of cloud-based learning environments. Let's give you a big hand. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Professor Lee, and President, and all of the guests and participants of this conference. I'm very honored to be here. And today I want to talking about the role of conceptual learning in the context of technology-enhanced learning environment. And as Professor Lee introduced, I'm right now the editor for Computer Education. And if you read the JCR report, Journal Citation Report, released last week, the impact factor right now is 4.5 something. So that's right now ranked the number 4 among 230 something journals in education. So if you know my name, maybe you got a, if you lucky, yeah, got a acceptance letter from me. But quite often you got a rejection letter from me. I'm sorry about that. But that's about 80% of the submissions will get rejection. Because we got, every year, we got about 2,000 submissions for the journal. And we publish about 200. So that's only 10% of the submissions will get accepted. And for the other journal, the impact factor is around 1.5. And we got about 1,000 submissions every year. And then we accept about 150. So the acceptance rate is around 15. And if you have any questions about these two journals, you can feel free to ask me some questions after this talk. And today I want to, because I have a lot of traveling, so my voice is not very good. Yeah, because I just back from Europe 2 days to Taiwan, and I just have 24 hours rest. Then fly to here last night, and then. But today I would like to share a series of my studies and about conceptual learning. And so my talk, I want to address a very fundamental issue. That is how students conceptualize learning. So can I ask you to reflect yourself? If I ask you, what's your idea or your belief about learning? What kind of idea you'll talk to me? Or if I interview you, say, what's your ideas about learning? And what's your answer? I don't have a long time, right? Yeah, because you say I need to make it short. You're very hungry. Yeah. So I try to make sure. Okay. So you can have an answer in your mind. Yeah. And so how do students think about learning? And what is learning? As I think most of you are teachers here. So I conduct one of my first study, that's one of my early studies, and I try to understand elementary school students' conception of learning. But because they are elementary school, so that's quite difficult to use, for example, questionnaire or even use interview. Sometimes quite difficult. So I ask them to draw, use a drawing, and to draw a photo, not a photo, a drawing to represent their conception of learning. So I collect a lot of their drawings. But right now I include some drawing because I have some follow-up study about that. So I also have, after that, I collect some their drawing from middle school students, high school students, senior high school students. So I have some example here, not only limited in these studies. So let me show you. That's from 12th grade. Do you know what you want to draw? What is the point? This one? Oh, okay. Who is? Oh yeah, that's the teacher. And what is that? Is that toast? Oh no, that's books. And the teacher want to put another books into your brain and try to squeeze everything in your brain. Yeah. So that's where we have some interview. If we cannot understand the drawing, we conduct some interview to understand their ideas. And that's quite typical. But because we say you can write something. Now, in addition to drawing, you can also write something. So that's very clearly, that's the students, and that's the teacher. And the teacher say, oh, okay, you need to memorize all the formula and memorize all the definition I wrote in the blackboard. I think that's very typical in classroom, especially in Asia classroom. Yeah. And here, he said, learning is writing down what the teacher said and told to classmates. So very silent. Yeah. Sonia, where is Sonia? Yeah. You're talking about silence.
Yes.
Yeah. So silence is very important in Asia classroom. And that's a meaning, or that's a symbolic idea about there are some meaning occurs in the classroom. Yeah. But if a lot of noise, that means you are not learning. But that's quite different from Western culture. In the Western culture, the classroom, that's a lot of noise. And they can talk to each other. They can have a lot of conversation at any time. But in Asian classroom, usually you cannot talk to your classmate unless your teacher asks you to do that. Okay. And what's that? That's by a 12th grader. That's a lot of food. And he or she try to finish all of them. And if he finished reading all of them, he said, oh, done. I already learned something. And so learning is very highly related to text, right? And before text, he thinks the light is bright, but after text, light is dark. Yeah. So it maybe got a low score, and that's the same. Learning is related to text, and after the text, and the parents get very angry when he or she read the score. And learning is a process of taking text, and then that's the mood when taking the test. And then in the beginning, that's quite calm down, that's quite stable. And then he found that he cannot answer the questions in the text. And so the mood like this one. And then he said, oh, I need to calm down, I need to calm down, I need to calm down. Then finally he found that he almost cannot answer most of the questions in the test. So he moved behind this one. And when he get the report card, he moved behind this one. And when his mom see the report card, yeah, he want to die, you know. Yeah. That's the idea about learning. And for this one, learning is just try to practice a lot of exercise in the textbook. Learning is try to working hard and try to also finish a lot of tutorial problem solving. Learning is also, that's in the traditional classroom, and try to practice mathematics and try to learn something. Yeah, let's practice a lot of mathematics problems. And what does this mean? Yeah, learning is a kind of increase of knowledge, but he showed quite well, because that's not like these directions. Because when learning, you need to experience a kind of bottleneck. Sometimes you cannot learn very quick. You need to try to go through it, take times. So learning is like this curve. You need, in the beginning, that's maybe quite quick, and you need to have some time to digest all the materials, and then you will go up. Learning is like a tree, growing a tree, and that's a kind of increase your knowledge and enlarge your scope, and you will grow up. Learning is a kind of building blocks, and from the very beginning, and try to building something. And learning involves a lot of thinking. And learning also need to practice. And you will need to have some practical work in laboratory or outside the school. Do you know? Because we interview the student, do you know what he wants to express? Any idea? Learning is make something more clear and reach a real understanding. So because in the beginning, that's very vague. Everything is very vague. And then you gradually understand that. And then finally, you know the real meaning of something, or the real image of something. Okay, so that's a kind of metaphor to represent their ideas about learning. Learning, also, you try to understand something. In the beginning, you can understand, and then finally, you understand something. And learning is try to create a better life, and you try to mix whatever you already know, and with something new, and try to create a better life. Learning is try to increase your, try to enhance your thinking and knowledge and more. And learning is know something new. Okay. So you can see different grades. They have different ideas about their belief about learning. And then the research about transitional learning is not a very new topic. If we trace the research, we can back to 1979. Social, a Sweden scholar, have conducted a study for undergraduate students, try to understand their conception of learning. And you will find that that's quite similar to my drawing I showed to you. You can see they have the idea about increase of learning, increase of knowledge, memorizing, apprehension of meaning, or you try to understanding. And then a lot of researchers, they did follow-up studies across different contexts and different cultural groups. they find similar categories of conceptual learning expressed by different learners. So you think of Martin, that's also European scholars, increase of knowledge, memorizing, applying. As I say, you can practice in the laboratory, also outside the school. You can apply the knowledge, then understanding, seeing something in a new way, or changing as a person. And some other follow-up. For example, this one, memorizing, applying equation and procedures. We saw that in the drawing, and also making sense of the physical concepts and seeing a new way and change as a person. So I conduct another study that's earlier than my joint study. Because my major is in science education, not in educational technology. A lot of people know me, that's because I am the editor for computer education. I think my major is in educational technology. But in reality, got my bachelor degree in physics. And then I'm a science teacher in junior high school. Then my PhD is in science education. So I'm so interested in something about science education. So a series of these studies, the beginning, I try to understand students' conception of learning, particularly for science. Because I think science is a very special domain. So their conception of learning in general may be a little bit different if I ask their conception of learning, particularly for science. So I have the first study about Taiwan high school students' conception of learning science learning, and I interviewed more than 100 students, and they try to understand their conception of science learning. And I used the qualitative method called phonographic analysis. And I found 7 categories. From the beginning, that's the learning science as memorizing. Just try to memorize a lot of definition, facts in science. Learning science as preparing for tests. Learning science as calculating and practicing. Learning science as increase of knowledge. Learning science as applying. Learning science as understanding. Learning science as seeing in a new way. And you will find that's likely a hierarchy from a very lower level to higher level. In the beginning, that's just try to memorize and try to practice. Or your motivation for learning is only for tests, not for applying, not for understanding, not for seeing something in a new way. And for the bottom category, for this part, that's we think we consider them as more higher level conception of learning, and they are more related to intrinsic motivation, and they want to know something new from their own interest, not because of the pressure of their teachers, of their parents. And also, in these studies, we found that learning or learning science is preparing for tests. That's the first one. For the I would say that's the category never found in the literature in the West. Yeah. So because we have a lot of study, because I review that, and that's the newly found category, especially in Asian country. And but I think you can replicate this study in Korea. I promise you, I guarantee you will find the same categories. And then also, learning science and calculating and practicing tutorial problems. I think that's related to the nature of science. Because in our science textbook, we contain a lot of exercise about tutorial problem exercise. So I think that's related to the nature of the subject matter of science. And because I interviewed more than 100, so can you estimate we have more than, which one have the most frequency? Memorizing?
Number 2.
What?
The
The second, the test. Okay. But quite lucky, you know, yeah, that's a kind of normal distribution. Memorize only 7, test 19, calculating 23, and increase, I think that's in the middle, that's 24, applying 17, understanding 23, and then for a very higher level, that's only 7. So that's a kind of normal distribution, and I try to use this figure to illustrate the variation of across these categories. For example, these are more related to their external motivation, and these are related to more to their internal motivation. And for these 4 categories, they focus on how much they learn. That's more quantitative view about learning. And for these 3, they focus on more on how well they learn. So that's about more about qualitative view about learning. They focus on the quality of learning. But you will find few of them think that CA knew a new way. But also few of them focus only on memorizing. So that's also quite good for that. Then I continue another study. I want to test if the context will play a role in their conception of learning. So I conduct, I think, a very interesting study. I conduct a study for cram school students. You know cram school? I think that's very popular. Is that popular here? Yeah. 补习班 in Taiwan we call cram. Yeah. Here, I think that's very popular, right? And we try to interview 45 cram school students. They spend every day after school. They went to cram school at least 3 hours. So that's our target sample. And we interview them. And also use the phonographic analysis. And you'll find that the same categories, but quite different distribution. That's the result. What do you find? You found 7, only 45, okay, students. 7 memorizing, 15 preparing for test, 21 calculating. 0 about increase of knowledge, 0 about applying. Only 2, they want to have understanding. No one mentioned about seeing in a new way. So that's the evidence that the context will play a role in shaping students' conception of learning. And if you put or you situate your students in that kind of context, you will change their conception of learning. So I move to what I have. Yeah, I only have. I still have 30 minutes, right? Yeah. Okay. So I continue to the next one. Then I say my first major is science education. Then I switch a little bit my major to education technology after I got my faculty position in the university. Then so after 2001 or 2000, I shift a little bit to education technology. So then I try to understand or try to explore if the students engage in way-based learning. Because I already said context will play a role in shaping their conception of learning. So how about if we situated our students into or engage them into some web-based learning context, will that change their conception of learning? So that's one of my studies. That's published in 2009. And I have a chance to get 83 Taiwanese students. They enroll, because in that time, higher education already have some online courses. But that's impossible for high school or elementary school. They have online courses at that time in Taiwan. But in higher education, in university, they offer some online courses. So I try to recruit 83. They have some experience of taking online courses. So they have experience about web-based learning. And I asked them, I interviewed them twice. The first one, the first time is to interview their conception of learning in general. That's their traditional view about conception of learning. And then the second round of interview, I asked them to reflect their ideas about learning in the context of web-based learning. So that's the result. We have interview findings, and then that's here. But this is too complex, so I show you this one. You found that? That's their conception of learning in general, and then their conception of web-based learning. And the category is quite similar. The first one is memorizing. The second one, you remember that? The second one is a test. But here, we change to status, because someone they say, oh, I can get a better score. That's a status. And then sometimes they say, I can get a better job in the future. And also, sometimes they will say, if I get a better score, then I can get a better job in the future. So we group all these ideas into status. And also calculating, increase of knowledge, applying, understanding, seeing in a new way. And here, you see, if we ask their conception of learning in general, that's a kind of still normal distribution. But if I ask their conception of web-based learning in particular, no one mentioned about memorizing, status, calculating. Most of them mention about increase of knowledge, because they can have more resources in the online courses, because they can connect and they can interact with a lot of people on the web. And also, 21 say something about applying, 22 about understanding, and 11 say something about seeing in a new way. So that's also evidence that context will play a role in shaping their conception of learning. And if you see this figure for this line, 12, 6, 9, 4, that means their conception of learning in general is the same as their conception of web-based learning. But in this area, that means their conception of web-based learning is higher than their conception of learning in general. And for this 2, 2, 3, 1, that means their conception of web-based learning is lower than their conception of learning in general. That means most of them, either they are the same, or most of them, their conception of web-based learning is higher in higher level than their conception of learning in general. So the conclusion is that if we implement web-based learning or any kind of technology-enhanced learning in a proper way, that's a good, there is a good potential to enhance their conception of learning from more lower level to higher level, because we see some opportunity here from this study. So Yeah. That's the conclusion. The conceptual web-based learning will often more sophisticated than those of learning in general. And so I think the implementation of web-based learning instruction may be a potential avenue for preparing or for promoting students' conceptual learning. You want to take a photo? Yeah. Okay. So, because in the past study we only used interview, and we asked them to reflect their conceptual learning in general and their conceptual web-based learning. Then, so I try to have an intervention about that, try to test my hypothesis if the web-based learning can have a real effect on their conceptual learning. So I have another study, and I try to use 79 Taiwanese college students, use a quasi-experimental study. And one group assigned to internet-assisted instructional group, and that's very traditional educational research, right? And the other one is traditional instructional group. And then, so this group, that's the experimental group, they engage a lot of online activities. We assign a lot of online tasks, and for them to finish that kind of activity and discussion online, and they can search a lot of information online. And then this one is more traditional one. That's face-to-face, lecturing, interaction, something like that. And then we collect their data from questionnaire and something like that. Because they are all college students, so they can answer the questionnaire response already. Then that's the major result. Again, we have 7 factors here: memorizing, testing, calculating, increase of knowledge, applying, understanding, seeing in a new way. And that's from very lower level to higher level. And we have the data from experimental group that they engage in internet-based learning, and the others is traditional group. And we have pre-test about their conceptual learning, and also post-test about conception of learning. And we use a comma to test the hypothesis. Then we found that for these two, there are some significant difference. And for this one, also significant difference. The major finding is that for these two lower level conceptual learning, the traditional group have a higher score than internet-assisted group. That's the same. 3.44, 2.65, and 3. That's for traditional group. That's for internet-assisted group. And that's for lower level conceptual learning. Okay? So that means if they engage in internet-assisted learning group, they will express lower agreement for lower level conceptual learning. And for this one, it's more higher level conceptual learning. You will find that their score, the students who engage in internet-assisted group have much higher score in these factors. So again, the treatments show the effects. If we try to implement proper technology-enhanced learning activity, that may help them develop more sophisticated or more mature conception of learning. But you will say that technology is very bad. Different technology may have different effects. So I have another study that's published in Internet in Higher Education, and I try to understand if we use different technology, that will result in different conception of learning. So we have a group of 23 Taiwan undergraduate students, and they involved in a project about context-aware ubiquitous learning. You know what that's, right? That's like when you in a museum and you use something like iPhone or iPad, or in the past we call PDA, and use that as a guide and try to help you learn something. And when you go to one place, they will automatically guide you and feed some information for you. And you can interact through the interface and try to answer some questions. Also, you can also ask some questions with the interface, and then they will give you some feedback. Something like that. That's we call ubiquitous learning, context aware ubiquitous learning. And you found that we interviewed 23, and that's a very qualitative studies. And we found that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 categories. That's quite different from roles we found before. For example, he said, oh, okay, e-learning is just application of technology. Because you use a PDA. And e-learning as a platform for getting information, e-learning as a timely guide, e-learning as an increase of knowledge, e-learning as active learning. And again, you will see, even though they are the same group of learners, they engage in the same activity, use the same technology and device. They express quite different ideas or conception of learning. And again, this category can be considered from a very lower level to higher level. Some of them think that's just a kind of simple application of technology. But some of them think they promote their active learning. But for this study, we found a lot of mixed multiple conception of e-learning. So we use a tree, try to represent their mixed conception of learning. For example, if this one, T, that means there one student have the mixed conception A and T. A is application of technology. T is a timely guide. So we use a tree, try to represent. If your study have a lot of students, they have mixed conception of learning, and you can use this tree to represent their mixed conception of learning. And then the other side, how about teachers' conception of technology enhanced learning? Well, we already know some of learners' conception of learning. Then, how about the teacher's side? So I have paper last year, and we have in Taiwan right now we have a large project about mobile learning. I think that's continue about 5 years, because Taiwan, that's similar in Korea, produce a lot of mobile device, and some companies will donate the mobile device to Ministry of Education. So at that time, I think they got about 100,000 mobile device from HTC for free for education purpose to Ministry of Education. So they have a big project in the country and try to implement mobile learning for many schools from K to 12. Then we just have a chance to contact the project manager, and they ask us try to understand their teachers and their ideas from the teacher side. So we try to interview 15 senior high school teachers. They involved in this big project, and they have much more experience than others. And so we use interview and try to understand their conception of mobile learning. And that's the 6 categories we found from the teacher side. The first one is meeting students' preference. Do you know what that means? Yeah. Because every student love using mobile device. So if you can have some mobile device in your classroom, then students will feel very happy. Then that you just meet their preference, okay? Then, okay, conducting class with efficiency. Well, sometimes if you use mobile device, that's quicker than you write something in the blackboard. Then invigorating and enhancing learning. So let's try to enhance their motivation, maybe external motivation, but just try to stimulate their motivation. That's the reason of using mobile device or mobile learning. Parting from traditional teaching, then focusing on students' ownership. Then finally, we found some teachers say extending learning beyond school. So we see different categories, even though all of them are experienced teachers involved in the mobile learning project, but they display quite different conception of learning. And then we found that if we analyze these 6 categories in different focus, you find that from this one, that's the lower level, that's the more high level. These 3 focus more on the shape, more on the technology, or more on the device. And these 3 more on the learners. And then these 2 more on teacher's plan. Then the final one more rely on teacher plan and student plan. And the ownership, that's managing students. Then the final one is try to empowering students. And the final one, they focus on if we try to analyze this category in terms of products versus process, you'll find that the first 3, they more focus on product, and the final one, last 2, they more focus on learning process. So, okay, so that's the conclusion. And then, I think some years ago, I have a keynote speech, have a similar topic as this one. Then in Australia, then one researcher asked me, say, is that possible? You know that when the students from kindergarten or from 1st grade to 12th grade or to higher education, how they change their conception of learning as a result of our schooling, of our formal education? I think that's a very good question, and I don't have any answer for that. So then I conduct a study. I try to collect the data. Actually, we collect from kindergarten, but for this study, we try to collect data from grade 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12, and collect more than 1,000 drawings. The reason we use drawing is we want to have a cross-sectional study. But if we use questionnaire, the elementary school student cannot answer that. So finally, we decide to use the drawing from the elementary school to high school students. They can have the drawing, use the drawing to do that, and to represent their idea. I think that's quite common and universal for all the learners. And the first one, I want to share you how technology may play a role in students' conception of learning. So I try to pick up some of their drawing. They include some technology in their drawing. How do you think technology will play a role in their drawing in current stage or in current era? Here, you see, that's a traditional classroom. That's outdoor, right? That's also traditional classroom, and that's computer. So that's what he means is that computers is one of the channels of their education. They learn something from one, but they still have some other channels from traditional one or from outdoor or informal education. And he just wrote e-book. And we just ask, what is learning? But the only thing he drew is e-book. So maybe ebook is the major channel for his learning right now. And why is that? Here, you see the mobile phone, and HTC is a company from Taiwan, you know. Yeah. There I say the one donate 100. Already 45? Yeah. So HTC donate the 100,000 mobile device to major education. So you find a lot of drawing. The student will draw something about HTC because they got the mobile device from HTC. Yeah. But you think that they use HTC as a channel of learning. But actually we interview the students. You know, what's the purpose for HTC? Not search for information. What? Tune. Yeah, that's playing music. Yeah. HTC here, there is only playing music. Oh, yeah, and he said, oh, someone is accompanying with me. Yeah, okay. That's also technology is one way of learning, and that's they really use the mobile data to search something. You see HTC anywhere. Yeah. Yeah, that's playing music. That's this one. Yeah, that's quite good. And then the final one. Yeah, I want to conclude my study. I say I did a cross-sectional study of conceptual learning. Then I ask you right now to have good observation. I randomly pick up the students' drawing from kindergarten to 12th grade. And then I will show you. I did not comment anything. Then let you tell me what's the observation you found across from the kindergarten to 12. Okay? You know what I mean? Yeah. I will show you a series of drawing by the students from kindergarten to high school. Then you tell me what's your observation when they go up. That's kindergarten. Okay? That's kindergarten. We have the same instruction for them to draw. That's 2nd grade. That's 2nd grade. I feel so happy. That's 4th grade. That's 4th grade. That's 6th grade. That's 6th grade. That's 8th grade. That's 8th grade. That's 10th grade. That's 10th grade. 12th grade. That's 12th grade. What's your observation? Well, I report the results to the Minister of Education in Taiwan. And then he feels so sad. What's your observation? Yeah. Oh, okay. And you'll find, yeah. In the beginning, learning is very happy. And then later, they are unhappy. Yes. And then also, I think you have one observation that they their definition of learning become narrow and narrow. In the beginning, they have a lot of outdoor activities, and at home and anywhere, they think that's learning. Then finally, most of them, they draw something in traditional classroom. And also, one observation, because we're coding or we're drawing, in the later stage of learning, most of them, many of them, a higher percent, significantly higher percent of them, they learn alone, not with peers, you know. Yeah, so I think that's not a good trend for learning, and education may not play a very good role. That's not so important. That may not play a good role in shaping the students' conception of learning. Then, so I have some recommendation for future research. We can try different usage of innovative technology and how their effects on their conception of learning. And maybe we can test different cultural groups. Maybe they have different ideas about conceptual learning, and how their conceptual learning related to their learning process and outcome. We have a lot of evidence that if they have lower level of conceptual learning, they will more motivated by external factors, and they will get not so good learning outcomes. But if they have higher level conceptual learning, they are motivated by more intrinsic motivation and have better learning outcomes. And then we have a very important issue: how to help and how to foster the students' conceptual learning from the lower level to higher level. But in reality, maybe quite often we change their conceptual learning from very higher level to lower level. Okay, that's my. So I try to share some of my cross-sectional study at the end of this talk, and try to ask you to reflect the experience we provide to our students. Is that good for them or not? And if you are interested in my research, you can visit my official website. That's under my name, so you can see all of my publication over there. And thanks for inviting me to here, and it's my pleasure to share some of my slides.
Thank you so much, Dr. Choi. We have